Looks like it's time to dive into another great beverage. It's Dudes with Brews on a Porch. Let's check in with our friend Drew for this week's episode. Who will he talk to? What will they talk about? And what will they drink? What are you waiting for? Get your ass off the lawn and come onto the porch. It's Dudes with Brews.
Join with me for this episode of Dudes with Brews on a Porch. Very happy to bring in a guest, Derek, host of the Sometimes Geek Podcast. Derek, thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I know we've been talking about it for a little while.
You were one of the first people to actually reach out to me. I think you were the first promo swap that we did in the podcast world. So yeah, it's like you've been along for the ride the whole time, man.
Yeah, and actually, I was trying to think about that because I've met so many podcasters at this point, but I believe you were actually the first promo I ever aired on Sometimes Geek as well.
Yeah, I hit up Reddit and just said, looking to get some, promotion for the show and everything like that. And you were the first person to respond. And I listened to your show as soon as I heard about it, and then ever since I've been subscribed. So I'm pretty excited. And your show, I said before, I told you yesterday that it's really kind of amped me up a little bit to get back into gaming, and it's kind of brought my little son. He's 4. We've gotten a little closer because of gaming now. He likes to play Mario a lot. He's really into Sonic now, and I think my interest got a little sparked because of your show. And
that's super heartening to hear. With me and my family, yeah, my brother and I gamed a bit together, quite a bit. But my parents didn't really play a whole lot of video games, so I hope that, one day, if I have a little one running around, that I could kind of get that experience too. So in the meantime, that's just super heartwarming to hear.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But as you know, with the show, were you able to get the beer of the week?
I was.
Excellent. So, I kind of got a taste of my own medicine here because you are in Washington and I'm in Wisconsin. And for a while, I was just doing strictly Wisconsin-based breweries. And I know some of them do go out, are distributed across the country. But I was looking for a Washington-based brewery or just beer. And I was like, I can't find one. So I'm kind of getting a taste of my own medicine when I talk about all these great beers from Wisconsin. But we were able to line up Moose Drool. It's a brown ale from Big Sky Brewing Company. This is in Montana. So information about that. It is a chocolate brown in color, creamy texture, malty beer with just enough hop presence to keep it from being too sweet. It has a lot of good stuff in it. It's got some caramel chocolate, whole black malts, and it's got Kent Golding's Liberty hops, and its original gravity is 13 degrees Plato. I don't know what that means, but it sounds pretty sweet.
I've never heard that term.
I don't know. It must be pretty fancy. It's like orbiting in outer space or something like that. But 4.2% alcohol, no listing on the IBUs. So I'm going to give it a swig real quick and see how it goes.
Yep. Got to get mine opened up. I saved all that, fun background noise for the audio.
Yeah, it's definitely a darker beer. It's I'd say it's pretty medium in regards to in comparison to a porter, but it's got that porter stout taste to it. It's not bad. It's kind of like
no.
your. I would say it's a good beer to sit around a campfire or something like that too, and casually drink it. I like it.
Yeah, it's got kind of that like a flavor of a red almost. It's not super hoppy, which we were talking before. Was a little worried about it as I'm not a huge IPA guy.
Yeah, IPAs are interesting. A lot of people, at least in Wisconsin, are pretty big IPA fans, but you definitely have to grow the taste for it. Like the first time I had an IPA, I was like, "This is horrible," but I've definitely learned to love them, and I love them very much now. But I've kind of grown accustomed more to the darker beers and to the this brown ale. I like it a little bit more than even the lighter beers I used to drink. So I think it's pretty good. So it's we'll continue to enjoy this during the show. But yeah, man, you host the Sometimes Geek Podcast. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, I'm sure all your hosts or your listeners have gotten sick about you plugging it on the show, but
whatever.
The Sometimes Geek Podcast is basically a quick and to the point news recap. So just covering major headlines, along with, reviews of what I've been playing, just in case you guys want to check anything like that out. All episodes are kept to roughly 15 to 20 minutes by cutting out all the filler that you'd find on most gaming sites. So it just gets you back into whatever you're playing, or, if you're on the go, just something quick to stay informed.
Yeah, and that's what I really like about it is that, the shorter form, and it keeps you up, updated on all things going on. But you give some opinions on the stuff that you're trying out and things like that, which I like about that too, because I don't want to hear about just all the news and everything. I like to get opinions, and it seems like we have a similar taste in games. Unfortunately, the little guy still can't handle watching me play Resident Evil. So I've really put that on a shelf for a while, and I want to get back to it. I've had these games on my shelf, the Borderlands, the Handsome Jack collection. I started playing Borderlands, the pre-sequel, and I didn't finish it. Fallout 4 I haven't finished yet, and I was like, I feel like I'm failing at life because I love Fallout 3. It was so fun, and I got to get back to Fallout 4. But eventually, I did play Fractured Butthole, the South Park game, which was awesome.
I still haven't finished that one yet. For whatever reason, I was super into it, and it's one of the problems with doing a gaming podcast is I try to finish all the games I'm playing, but then I'm also stuck in that I can't talk about the same game week after week, so I start playing other stuff just to give, quick reviews, quick impressions, and unfortunately, when that happens, then you start running into newer games coming out that I want to play, and I just have a huge hard time trying to get back to them.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. It's more or less with the kids. Like I was playing the South Park game, and I was staying up a little later or getting up a little early to play it because I liked it so much. And it's not like a hard game, but it is kind of long, and there's just a lot. If you are one that wants to explore the world and everything like that, like that's what I really like about the game. But my daughter at one point comes out, and it was towards there's one part where Santa's involved, and it was I was just like, oh god, I don't think she needs to discover Santa Claus's truth right now or something like this. So I had to shut it off really quick. But yeah, gaming, man, like growing up, I was born in 1990, so gaming has really evolved drastically throughout my lifetime. I think the first system that I had, I want to say was a Sega. I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure it was a Sega, a Genesis, and
sounds about right for the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my mom got us Game Boys, and she liked Mario so much on my Game Boy that she made my dad buy a Super Nintendo with Mario. And then of course the kids, just gravitated over that and took over. And then, I've pretty much been a dedicated PlayStation consumer ever since. But, man, it's crazy where the world of gaming has gone.
Oh, yeah. No, and I'm a little bit older than you. Like, I was born in 84, so my earliest video gaming was done on an Atari 2600 that my parents had well before they had me. And like, I remember the day they brought the NES home and just sitting there playing Mario Brothers, and just like that Christmas morning, I got my Super Nintendo, and like all of these, just because of how big I was into gaming, just all these great memories and all these experiences I've had playing with friends, or, being like, oh, hey, let me borrow this one. You could borrow that one. And thankfully I also had a friend of mine who ended up getting like the other consoles I didn't have, so it was always a constant swap back and forth of, okay, well, let me borrow your Super Nintendo, and you could borrow my Genesis, and just try to play as much things as we could.
Yeah, I remember growing up, I was at one point I was the only friend that had a PlayStation 2, so actually, my other friend did, but regardless, I threw it in my backpack all the time when I would bike across town to go to my buddy's house so we could go play some PlayStation 2. And for some reason, we always played the game Manhunt. Did you ever play that?
I didn't. Wait, no. Yeah, I played through, I believe, the beginning of it, but for whatever reason, granted, I wasn't a huge PlayStation kid. Like, I had Nintendo consoles up until pretty much I was an adult, moved out of the house before I finally got something else.
Nice. Yeah, Manhunt is a gory game. It's just all you do is just like brutally kill people. That was the whole point of it essentially. But yeah, pretty much PlayStation has been my platform of choice. But do you do
one of the going back to that, just how gory Manhunt is? That's something that always intrigues me. It's like, you have kids. About what age were you when you were playing Manhunt?
Oh man, I had to be probably 11 or 12, maybe 13, something like that. Yeah,
so early teens.
Right, my daughter's 9 right now, and it's weird. Like she's really into Minecraft right now. So we have the Minecraft on the PS4, and she's always on creative mode, and she builds like crazy stuff. Like I'll be in the kitchen for 10 minutes, and I come back in, and she's like just concocted this crazy thing, and I never really got into Minecraft too much, but I can definitely see like the appeal to it.
Oh, definitely. Like I'm lucky if I build anything bigger than just, a square house.
Yeah, my daughter, like, she's built like crazy ass like tree houses, and like she always throws like barn animals in there and everything like that. So it's pretty cool, but it's interesting because my parents really didn't really play video games. My parents did get divorced, so like one system went with my dad, the Sega went with my dad, the Nintendo stayed with my mom.
Oh, jeez.
It was like part of the court order, I guess. But they didn't really play. But sometimes we would all be sitting around, and then we would play like some Sonic and things like that together. And the funniest thing with watching like one of your parents play video games is when they're stuck on something and they tilt the controller like as if the player's going to tilt with it.
I know, and I made fun of my mom for doing the same thing, especially like playing Mario and Tetris and stuff like that. She would do the same thing, and now I find as I've gotten older, I'm starting to do it.
Well, now it's part of the game sometimes.
Oh, that's true.
It's interesting. It's like now my parents who didn't really know how to game can actually accurately do it. It's pretty crazy. It's I love it. And what are you playing right now?
I'm trying to play A Way Out, but because it's co-op, I'm trying to play it with the wife. That's our kind of our sit down together and play game because she's also a gamer. But aside from that, I just played through Minute, which is an indie game from Devolver Digital that basically is kind of like the old school Legend of Zelda, that top-down adventure style game.
Okay.
But you only survive a minute, so it's all about running to do a quest real quick, then you die, reset, but you keep your progress and then run off to go do this other quest. And it's actually a lot of fun. I think it was like $10 to pick up.
That sounds pretty interesting. That sounds pretty intense a little bit and maybe a little frustrating at the same time.
Oh, definitely. There was some looking up of, okay, I have no idea what the hell to do. I can't sit here and explore. So yeah, I'm just going to look up, oh, okay, I have to go there. Pick up a bone. Great.
Yeah, I've found myself a lot of times just kind of cheating that way and looking up the walkthroughs from time to time.
Yeah, I do it not as much. I try not to, and that also goes into the fact that I'm not a completionist when it comes to a lot of games. Like, if I get through the main story and the side quests, I'm not going to worry about picking up every little, coin in the case of Resident Evil.
Right.
So generally, I'll stay away from walkthroughs, although I will say when I was younger, I would use them a lot more. And that was mainly just because we were trying to rent video games all the time. So I had to blow through them in a weekend.
Yeah, that was another thing, like renting video games. Yeah, you had like a week to try to beat it. And sometimes, if you can only rent games, you want to try as many games as you possibly can. So yeah, I definitely know how that goes. Resident Evil, the last Resident Evil game that I played and beat was Resident Evil 5. And then, so this one I think is 7 that I'm doing now. Is it 7 or 8? I don't remember.
I think it's 7.
7.
I don't know. It's kind of weird because it's also Biohazard, which is the Japanese name for the franchise. And
oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but I gotta say, for some reason, I don't know if it's my world outlook has changed, but they actually like those games freak me out a lot more now as an adult than when I was a kid.
Well, and so aside from Resident Evil, have you played any other real horror games?
Not really, like Manhunt, I played that. But other than that, no, The Evil Within looks pretty cool. I've never played those. So usually it's, the games that I play are either shooter games, like Fallout 3 or like I said, Borderlands. I've played all the Infamous games, which are a lot of fun. Grand Theft Auto, pretty much like the mainstream games I've kind of dabbled in.
Yeah, for me, most horror games like Resident Evil, for whatever reason, just didn't do it for me. There were maybe one moment right at the very beginning where one of the guys just kind of bursts through the wall right after you escape and you get your arm reattached. And no backstory to that. You guys can figure that one out. But aside from that, it didn't really get to me. But then there's other games, and I talked about this a bit on the show as well, as far as genres I don't play being horror, is because they make you feel helpless. And one of the games that really got me was one that I talked about on my AMA episode called Eternal Darkness, which was very much a Resident Evil style game where it was that fixed camera, what they called tank control, and as you moved around, you had a sanity meter that would drop down, and the game would just mess with you as that meter dropped down, where like blood would start coming down off the walls, or you would walk by like a bust of some, let's just say Caesar, and the head would follow you as you walked by.
That's pretty wild.
It just did like some of the craziest things, to the point where the best thing it ever did, and the biggest scare I've ever gotten from a game, is I went into a room in the game, and all of a sudden the volume started turning down on the TV, and it showed the volume meter go down. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm probably sitting on the controller or whatever, and I look at the coffee table in front of me, and the controller's across the table.
That's got it. Yeah, that does kind of gotta fuck with you a little bit.
Yeah, and it was just that, like, that reptilian part of your brain that's just like, okay, I have to process this in a split second. This isn't right.
That sounds pretty awesome. I might have to check that out. Are you predominantly a PC gamer?
Mostly, I typically say I'm a console gamer just because I've always been a console gamer. But I've got everything. I've got the Xbox One X, I've got the PS4, I've got a Game Boy or a 3DS. But when it comes to certain titles, I tend to lean towards PC, whether that's Hearthstone or indie stuff, like I mentioned, Minute, which, granted, I am playing on the Xbox at the moment, but I'll pick up games like that where they're just, your $10, $15, $20 on Steam that I know I'm going to blast through in 3 to 4 minutes or 3 to 4 hours.
Nice, man. So when you're not gaming, what are some other things that you do out? And I've never been to Washington. You're in Tacoma, correct?
Yes, Tacoma. So for everybody who's like, where the hell is Tacoma? It's basically an hour. I say an hour. It really depends on traffic. And if you talk to anybody from the area, that's all they talk about. It's typically 40 minutes to an hour south of Seattle.
Okay. Have you grown up there then?
No, I actually grew up in Kent, which is about 20 minutes, 30 minutes north. So kind of that sweet spot between Tacoma and Seattle. And as I got older, I leaned more into the Seattle scene, just because of what they had. It's a bigger city, if you're into music, if you're into art, if you're into geek culture, whatever you want, it's going to be in Seattle. But moving out of Kent, because it was one of those places where, because it was between those things, there was nothing to do, especially as a kid. Moving to Tacoma has actually been pretty awesome. It's just kind of a big city with a small town feel to it, with the nickname the Grit City, because Tacoma is just known for being, I wouldn't say poor or lower class, but definitely more real and raw. And so everyone's just kind of more laid back. Like, I will actually say hi to random people walking down the road if they pass by me. Whereas Seattle, it's just like, if someone says hi to you, they're either trying to rob you or sell you something, which is essentially the same thing.
Yeah, my wife's actually going to Seattle next month. I wasn't invited. It's a girls' weekend, I guess, so I'm not cool enough to be a part of that fun. But
so you could have went with her and just came and hung out in Tacoma.
yeah, I totally would have too. It would be fun. But yeah, I've heard a lot of cool stuff about Seattle with the music scene and everything like that. Interesting fact I learned while researching some of the beers there that Washington is the seventh largest, has the most breweries per capita in the nation. So that's a little fun fact.
Wow, number 7. I would have thought it would be way higher than that, just because of how many there are.
Yeah, there seems to be quite a bit, and it's like the same thing with Wisconsin. And when it comes to breweries in Wisconsin, there's so many, and there's so much beer to try, and so little time to try it. But I recently went to Carbon 4 this last weekend, which is a brewery in Wisconsin, and it was a really cool spot. And it's the small brewery that is distributing for the whole state of Wisconsin, and it's just nuts, kind of like how they're reasoning why they don't ship it out countrywide, just because there's so many of them out there. So if I really want to try these beers, I gotta get my ass on a plane and start drinking. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, and granted, I'm not the biggest beer person. I'm more of a liquor guy, but there are definitely some great Washington ones. The one I had recommended to you, if you could get your hands on it, was the Iron Horse Irish Death, which is probably my favorite beer, if not top, second place. The other beers from Elysian, which they make all sorts of them. They've got, your IPAs, your super hoppy stuff. They've got porters and dark ales and pretty much anything you could want. But they make a beer called Split Shot, which is a espresso stout.
Okay, yeah, I've had something similar to that,
and that one's awesome. The one that I forgot to look it up before I hopped on here. The one that is my favorite, which I don't believe is a Washington one, is actually the Left Hand Milk Stout. If you have a chance to pick that one up, that one's really good.
Left Hand Brewery?
Yeah.
That sounds pretty familiar. So yeah, I think I can get that. It's nuts. It's nuts. You think you'd be able to get access to more beer, but you can't unless you want to, pay a pretty penny to get some. But yeah, I'm not really too much of an alcohol consumer. I drink once a week on this podcast, and every once in a while, maybe on a weekend, I'll crack one open. But yeah, you said you're a liquor guy. I am a huge baby when it comes to liquor. I will, and part of the reason is the kids. I really don't drink as much as I nearly used to 10 years ago. And if I have 2 mixers, I'm done for the night. I'll be wasted, and I'll feel like shit the next day. So.
Oh, I definitely feel like shit the next day, but that's one of the reasons people bring up, you're in your early to mid 30s. What about kids? You're married now. And I'm like, yeah, but I can sit here and get drunk and play video games with my wife. Why would I want to change that?
There's nothing wrong with that. I don't know. Every time I say this, people look at me like I'm just out of the ordinary or something. It's okay to not have kids. I love my kids very, very much, but your life drastically changes. And if you're content and you're happy with living the life you're living, yeah, stick with it. You don't need to have kids. There's nothing wrong with it.
Oh yeah. And we've talked about it and whatnot. And I told my wife, I said, you know what? I had 2 major goals that I wanted to achieve before I ever had kids. One was buy a house, which thankfully I did. Congrats. A year ago with moving to Tacoma. And the second, thank you, because I know you've been working on that for a little while.
Oh, fuck, man. Don't even get me started on that. I want to get a house so badly.
It's the greatest and worst thing in the world, because you're like, hell yes, I'm out of an apartment. And especially with the fact that I was on the 3rd floor of this little crappy apartment that you could hear the neighbors all day long, and there were cops through the parking lot every night. And I won't get into those stories, but it's the greatest thing, because you're like, hell yeah, I could blast music and, do whatever I want. But then it's also the worst, because the week I moved into the house, we had to call a plumber to snake out the drains, and then my fence broke the next weekend. It's just all those fun things.
Yeah, there's definitely, it's a catch-22 regard. on both sides. But yeah, eventually I'm working on it. I'm paying bills off and everything like that, and I can't wait to have a house and hopefully have an area where I can sit down and play some video games and just chill. Like, there's really nothing more to life than, for me personally, I like to live the simple life of having a beverage, being able to sit in the comfort of my own home, do whatever I want, and just hang out. Like, that's what it's all about to me.
Oh yeah, and I'm a huge introvert, so like, with the exception of podcasting and hopping on to talk to people like you and have people on my show and to interact with people on Facebook and whatnot, I'm like, all right, now that that's out of the way, I'm just gonna hang out and again, have a drink and play some video games, watch a movie.
I've definitely have turned into an introvert. Like, it's crazy. If you would have known me 10 years ago, I was a teenager, but I'm always going out. I'm always hanging out with my friends. I'm never at home. And now it's like I complain about people not inviting me to things, but I kind of just want the option of being invited, but being like, I'm going to stay home.
Oh, absolutely. And part of that comes with, like, you just recently went on to third shift, and we've talked about that quite a bit offline.
Yeah.
That it's one of those things, like, when I worked graveyard, I was working 12-hour days, 6 days a week. And yeah, people pretty much a couple months in they pretty much just write you off. They're like, okay, yeah, he's not coming, so we won't even invite him.
Right. And
it's true, because there's no chance in hell I would have gone.
Yeah, absolutely. It's third shift is a weird beast, man. It's, some days I get done at I get to work around 10:15 to 10:30, and then I leave at 7 in the morning. I go in Sunday nights, and then Friday at 7 a.m. starts apparently my weekend, and it is just weird, like, how I have to like reprioritize everything. I do get to hang out a lot more with my son, because I hang out with him all day until my wife gets home. But pretty much during the week, as soon as my wife gets home, I am on the verge of dying because I'm so tired, and I just like, oh hey, and I just scramble to the room and fall up to the bed, and I'm just out. But it's it's a good opportunity. It was the way to get the foot in the door. So eventually I'll get to a different shift. But yeah, until then I'm drinking coffee all the time.
Oh yeah, and that was one of the things, because I didn't have kids, and I don't have kids. I wouldn't mess up my sleep schedule. So the girlfriend at the time would go to bed around midnight, and I would be up until 7, 8, 9, 10 in the morning.
Yeah. And
then you realize that there is nothing to do,
or nothing on TV either. There's just nothing.
But I will say, one of the best things, I was on one of my 12-hour shifts, I worked 11 to 11, or no, I think I had an 8-hour. So I worked from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. and got home and decided, okay, well, I'm going to go out on the porch, have a smoke, have a beer. And just watching everybody getting up and getting ready to leave for work and giving you the dirtiest look as you're just hanging out on the porch drinking a beer. It was fantastic.
I've had those times where like, I've done some episodes with my friend Rob, who also works third shift. He works at the same place I do. And I show up at his place on a Saturday after I worked some overtime at 6:30 in the morning, and we're cracking open beers, and I was like, this is just weird, but you've been up all night, and this is just a normal part of your day. But it's interesting, man, to kind of adjust everything like that. And it's like, it's nuts how, like, I don't get that much sleep. I really don't. But blackout curtains don't really seem to work, and it's every weekend I just in a second just kind of, I can adjust back to like that regular first shift life. But usually I try to stick on some sort of routine where I maybe like take a nap at 7 o'clock at night, but then I wake up, and it's 2 in the morning, and then I'm like, oh, now what? So, and there's been times where like I've started to clean, but I don't want to be too loud because I don't want to wake the kids up. I don't want to wake my wife up. But man, like, you just really run out of things to do. And that's the time I should be gaming. Like, that's when I need to start working on. Like, sometimes I'll go, to the gym and stuff. But other than that, yeah, I need to turn on the PlayStation and start getting some of these games played.
Yeah, and that was one of the things where I've always been a big gamer, but that's where I started really knuckling down, being like, I'm going to play whatever I can get my hands on. And one of the worst things, though, is that because you're so used to third shift, you have to play games that'll keep you up.
Yeah.
I would sit there and play some RPG, I don't even remember which one at this point, and just like nod off with the controllers in my hands and wake up, and it's just like, oh, my character's still moving.
Yeah, that happened with me when I was playing the South Park game that I was really into, but you just get to that point where you're so tired, and then like you waking up to the controller falling on the ground. You're like, oh, what's happening? It's like, oh, I died 37 times. What the hell?
I know. And then you look at your play time. It's like, oh, you've played 400 hours of this game, and you're like, but I'm only in the first level.
Probably, yeah. My one of my most favorite gaming moments is when that whole swine flu epidemic happened. I got it. Unfortunately, I had swine flu, which for me it wasn't as bad as everyone made it seem to be. I could still eat whatever I wanted. I just felt like trash, and so I was kind of condemned to my apartment at the time until my fever broke for 24 hours, which didn't happen for 6 or 7 days. So at that time, I was living. Me and my sister had an apartment. My sister she was gone at her boyfriend's house, and I was like, hey, no one can come here. Like, I don't want to get anybody sick. So I played Metal Gear Solid 4. Which I love the Metal Gear series. Those are a lot of fun, but you really need to invest some time into those games.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say 7 days on the couch might not even be enough for that one.
Right, and then but I remember I played for 5 hours straight, and there was a loading screen, and it gets Snake is smoking a cigarette, and then a little message pops up. You've been playing for over 4 hours. You should consider taking a break. And I was like, what? I was like,
I always yell at those. Like, it was really, really popular on the Wii. They had a bunch of those and the Wii U. It's like, oh yeah, you've been playing 4 hours, or I think on that one it was like 2 hours, and I'm just like, really, you don't know me. You don't know how much I game.
It's like, yeah, don't tell me how to live. I got swine flu loading screen. You can fuck right off. And but yeah, and then I remember I finished the game. It was like 1:30 in the morning, and the final cutscene's a good hour and a half.
Yep.
I was like, holy shit. I started playing Metal Gear 5. It was free on the PlayStation Network for a little bit, but I think at one point I just really messed it up, and I was like, oh, I don't think there's any coming back from it. It's way different than the other games.
Yeah, I know. I checked out the demo for it, I think, like right when that dropped. It was like... or it wasn't a demo. It was just like download the first level, pay for the first level, whatever it was. And I did kind of the same thing. I was trying to play it like it was classic Metal Gear, trying to sneak through, find boxes. And I screwed up at some point where it's just like all the guards in the installation were coming at me. And I just played it like, I was playing Halo or Gears of War or whatever. And it still worked. I'm like, okay, this isn't the Metal Gear I think it is.
Yeah. It's Metal Gear is a crazy different type of game. Like, you have to have a lot of patience when you're playing Metal Gear, because not only is it those are long ass games, but you have to stealth. It's a stealth based game, and they kind of took it away in some aspects of it, and I wasn't really into it, but maybe I'll give it another try. I remember the first time I ever had a PlayStation. I got my first PlayStation. It came with a demo disc, and Metal Gear was on there, and that's just how I randomly discovered it. And then finally I bought it. I bought it after I got a PlayStation 2. I bought the first Metal Gear. I found it at like an EB Games. I don't think those exist anymore. But
no, they got bought out by GameStop.
GameStop, yeah. And and I remember I asked the guy at the desk, I was like, do I want to get the second one or the first one? He's like, you want to get the first one? And I was just like, yeah, I think you're right. It's like 2 discs long, but it's so fun. I played through it like a good 3 or 4 times, which that's what kind of like I like about like video games, is there's usually some replay value with them, especially with Metal Gear. You make a decision one time around, it affects your next gameplay. Like in the first one, if you give in Meryl, you get like one of the or if you let her die, I think you get a like an invisibility cloak the next time you play it. But then if you like fight for her, you get the bandana and you get unlimited ammo. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, and I miss those, like, back in the day, the demo discs. Like, I ended up, I think I was like 18 at the time, or 19. I bought a PS2 from a coworker because she wanted the, like, super thin, whatever version of the PS2 was out at the time. And so I think I bought it from her for like $50 and went to a GameStop just to pick up something. I was like, I don't even remember what it was. It might have been Guitar Hero or something. And when I picked it up, some guy was basically unloading a bunch of demo discs trying to sell them. And they're just like, yeah, we can't take these. Like, these aren't for resale. And the guy just kind of stormed off. He's like, well, just throw them away. And so they just looked down at the stack. And I had been in that GameStop plenty of times and just mentioned, hey, I finally got a PS2. And they just looked down at the stack of discs and they're like, all right, here you go.
Here you go. That's awesome. Yeah, demo discs are pretty, they were pretty useful at one point in time, and it's just crazy how much the gaming has changed. And I've never really gotten into the online gaming culture. I grew up with the single player story mode, and that's kind of what I've really adapted to, and I still to this day love it.
Yeah, and I love single-player games, but as someone who grew up playing like GoldenEye on the 64 with 4 of your buddies, or...
Yeah, that was always a good time. Yeah, now, I guess when we did the multiplayer stuff, I was always with somebody, so it was always like a social event, a social gathering.
Oh, yeah, and that's going back to the fact that gaming has changed so much. There isn't a whole lot of that, people just sitting around on a couch playing together. Like, especially, like I mentioned, my wife's a huge gamer, and so... we try to find stuff we could play against each other, and there's just nothing out there. Like, yeah, you get your party games, your trivia, or your fighting games, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, for a while, I got on the whole Madden kick. I'm pretty big into the NFL and things. Of course, I'm a Packer fan. I'm not a big Seahawk fan. I don't know if you are, but
I'm not a huge football fan. I'm more of a hockey guy.
Oh,
but,
nice.
I believe your wife mentioned she was a Seahawk fan on an episode.
Yeah, she does it. She does that to piss me off. But yeah, she is. But yeah, I would play. That was like the one game that I would play online is against all these like 12-year-old kids that would just demolish me every time I try to play it, and they're just.
I know, and the worst part is they trash talk you the entire time.
Yeah, and then I have a mic on my headset, and they're just like, oh, you sound like an old man. Like, fuck you, Gramps. Here's a touchdown or something like that.
So, okay, this is going to be, you might end up censoring this. I know you don't censor a whole lot on the podcast, but there is one joke that I had seen on Facebook or like some meme picture that someone had posted. Like, their husband and their son, from the female perspective, were playing games together and just trash talking each other. And the guy was... the husband made some comment about, fucking the kid's mom, obviously. And the kid just stops and looks at him and says, yeah, but I've been deeper in her than you.
That's pretty good. And trash talking is like, in some way, shape, or form is a form of the online world, because there's been so many times where I personally haven't had the controller, but I take the headset, at least I used to, and I would just troll people because I thought it was hilarious.
I kind of went the other way, because when I got big into online gaming, it was around Halo 2, which is what got me into the Xbox and Halo. Like, I would just hit up a buddy of mine. I was recently single at the time, and it's like, hey, what are you up to? Oh, playing Halo 2. It's like, okay, so I'd go over and play with him. And anytime we would have the little kids come on and just start trash talking, I would just turn into this rage. And I don't know where it came from, where I would just start yelling at them to get them to shut up and eventually quit the match.
Oh, yeah.
And the worst part was, like, as terrible as it was, it's like everybody else in the group would be like, oh my God, thank you. He's been annoying us forever.
Yeah. I might have been one of those people that annoyed you. Who knows? Yeah, Halo was a pretty big game in my friend group. It was like Halo, Guitar Hero, and then eventually Call of Duty. And I liked Guitar Hero. I did like Halo, but I wasn't really into Call of Duty or anything like that. I don't know why.
I don't know. For me, Call of Duty, I'm, for whatever reason, terrible at it. And I don't know if it's just the fact that in Halo or most sci-fi shooters, you get some sort of shield, you're not dying instantly. So I can kind of react to it or what. But yeah, Call of Duty, I don't know. I think the last Call of Duty I played was the first Modern Warfare.
Oh, wow. So it's been a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
Yeah, that's nuts. But there's some cool games coming out. I'm really looking forward to God of War, the next God of War game, because I love those games. The kind of like the puzzle aspect of it and things like that. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it'll probably be a game that I buy and it'll sit on the shelf for a while, and eventually I'll get to it. Hopefully.
That one's kind of creeped up on me. I didn't realize it was coming out like in a month.
Yeah, it's pretty soon. Isn't it in April? At the end of April? Yeah. So that'll be pretty sweet to pick up, and that's probably like the first game I've really gotten excited about in a while, just because I've played all the other three. But yeah, other than that, man, it's work. It's hanging out with the kids and going to the park. Hopefully, we just got hit with Winter Storm Dan. Like, what an aggressive winter storm name, huh? Oh, speaking of which, here's my son is barging into my room. So, what you doing, dude? Say hi.
Hi.
Can you go by mom? You can't go by mom?
I'm going to go turn on emoji.
Come on, you're gonna watch the Emoji Movie. It'll be a good time.
Said no one ever.
Right. It's a weird movie. Like, how do you base a movie completely on emojis? Who knew emoji culture would be so big in the world?
I mean, other than, Apple.
Yeah. Yeah, Apple's really took the emoji game and stepped it up to places I never thought it would go. And now there's a movie starring T.J. Miller.
I don't even know who that is.
T.J. Miller, he's a stand-up comedian. He's performed quite a bit in Wisconsin. He played Yogi Bear in that crappy CGI Yogi Bear movie.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I guess he's been in some other movies. But yeah, he's an interesting dude to say the least. But yeah, do you ever? So you don't have kids, but do you ever pop on any of like the Pixar flicks or anything? Because you grew up with it. You grew up with Toy Story and things like that. So what's that?
I watched a lot of the classic Disney films. Little Mermaid, Lion King, and then moving on to Toy Story and stuff. But for whatever reason, I've got friends who, they're the same age as I am. They're mid-30s who are just Disney fanatics. Like anything Disney, they're all about. I'm just not one of those people. Like my wife is a huge Disney person, and I can't stand those movies.
Oh, really? Yeah, there's some that I grew up with that I loved, and then I go back and rewatch. I'm like, I don't like The Lion King. I'm probably gonna get some trash for that.
You're definitely going to get trash from that
I watched it so much as a kid, and then they released it. They released it from the Disney Vault or whatever that it is that they do, and it's like the Prince Vault. But I like go and rewatch it. I was like, this is kind of lame. Like, it's just you're just like beating us over the head with we get this is a circle of life, and Hakuna Matata. Don't give a shit. Okay, I get it.
Now, see, I was always into those weird like. Obviously meant for young adult movies like Rookie of the Year and
I like Rookie of the Year,
Angels in the Outfield, stuff like that.
Funky butt loving, great. That's the best line in Rookie of the Year. I used to watch that quite a bit when I was a kid.
Man, and I was thinking about that the other day, is that there are just some terrible movies that came out around that time. Like you had Man of the House. What was the other one? Jungle to Jungle.
Yeah, Jungle to Jungle. Tim Allen with his Mimi Siko. His kid's name, it like translates like cat piss. That's nuts, man. And some of those movies, like I feel like you can't make today, just because some of the humor in it. Somebody out there would get offended by it. It's crazy, but yeah, I like some of the kids' movies, but I'm with you, man. Like I've watched Frozen. way too many times. The first time I watched it, I hated it. I didn't think it was that great of a movie, and thankfully I haven't watched it in a while. So hopefully they never make that sequel that I've heard that they're gonna make, and I can avoid it for the rest of my life.
See, so do you actually enjoy these movies, or is it more of kind of a Stockholm syndrome, like you're picking the lesser of the evils?
I like, I still like the Toy Stories because my kids really don't watch them that much. We have them all, but I like those ones. I like, like Big Hero 6 was a pretty cool Disney movie. Some of them, most of them, like the newer ones, though, I can't get into. Like, I'll probably go see The Incredibles 2, and I don't even know what else they're releasing, but luckily enough for me, I think now they're releasing so many Marvel movies. I have a 9-year-old who likes all these Marvel movies that she's kind of more absorbed into those movies that I actually want to see too, so it's a little bit better.
Oh, yeah, and with their release schedule, you're pretty much set for life there.
God, there's so many, and I'm so far behind. It's unreal. Like, I haven't seen any of the sequels to Thor or Captain America. I've only seen one Avenger movie. I've seen all the Iron Man, and I did watch the new Spider-Man movie, which I thought was pretty awesome. I was pretty hesitant about the new Spider-Man, but I gotta say, I think he is the best. Tom Holland.
Yeah, for me, I'm a huge DC nerd, which unfortunately we get crap movies. But when Avengers came out, it's like I watched. Granted, so growing up, I was huge into movies as well, so I watched everything I could get my hands on. And as I've gotten older, it's like, okay, I can spend this time gaming or watching movies, so typically I pick gaming. So when the Avengers was coming out, it's like I sat down over the course of a week and watched the original Thor movie and the first Iron Man movie, and just like went down the list of Captain America and then saw Avengers. And I think with the exception of the Avengers, the only other one I've seen since was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I've seen both of those, and the first one was awesome. The second one was good too, but I wish they didn't go for the jokes as much as they did. Because the first one, it was funny because you didn't really know what you were getting into. Yeah, because it's a whole new universe in a sense. But then there was a lot of funny parts to it, but that wasn't the main focus. Where I feel like the second one was more of a comedy,
which is kind of the same thing I've heard about the newest Thor movie as well.
Yeah, that looked like it had some good stuff in it too. But yeah, I mean, I'll probably never see those just because I'm so far behind already. And yeah, me too. I'm a pretty big DC guy. I've read a lot of the Batman comics, and I thought Suicide Squad was actually pretty good.
Okay, so I'm not alone on that. I thought it was and granted, I'm a big fan of just bad 90s action films, and I thought it was a good version of that.
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't really get all the hate. I guess maybe people were pissed at the aspect of the Joker that they took on it, but I didn't. I thought he did a good job with it. He wasn't in the movie that much, but I liked the movie. I thought it was pretty cool, and I enjoyed it. Batman vs Superman was long. I mean, it had.
In fairness, I haven't watched any of those, like the newer Superman stuff.
I liked Man of Steel. Man of Steel was good. Batman vs Superman was okay, a little drawn out. But it wasn't. I don't know if it was the abomination that everybody makes it out to be. I have not seen Justice League yet.
It's not terrible.
Okay, good. And then I still have to watch a Wonder Woman, which I've heard amazing
you have to watch
about.
Wonder Woman. Watch Justice League before you watch Wonder Woman.
Okay.
I would go that route just because it kind of seeing them back to back. And granted, I saw them both in theater. Wonder Woman is actually a really good movie. Granted, I'm a generic white male that I don't get the same resonance that my wife did with the movie because she absolutely was like, this is the greatest thing ever. But I enjoyed it for what it was. But I feel like they focus so much on Wonder Woman in the Justice League movie because of the success of it that it might make you a little bit burnt out if you were to watch them back to back.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely I'll definitely do that. Now, yeah, I have Wonder Woman on my DVR, so I was probably just most likely just buy the Justice League and I'll watch it a couple times and that'll be it. I've picked up a couple of the animated Batman movies, like The Killing Joke, which is have you ever read The Killing Joke?
I have not read it, but I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah, it was. That's probably one of my favorite Batman comics. Is the Killing Joke, and then the animated movie. It was different than what I thought it would be, but it was still pretty good. Of course, you got Mark Hamill as the Joker, so anytime you can hear that, that's always a good thing to do because he's just amazing.
Okay, so question for you then: who's a better Joker, Mark Hamill or Jack Nicholson?
I would say Mark Hamill. I think he captures what I think the Joker would really be, as far as the voice and things like that.
All right, yeah, I'm in agreement. So,
so like with if you go on live action, I'm pretty sure Heath Ledger is going to be the greatest Joker to have ever done it.
So the only reason I say no is because and I'll have to find it and send it to you, but there's an interview with Tom Waits where he was on The Tonight Show, and that is basically who he based his character off of. Like the mannerisms, the voice, all of it. Okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But the older Batman movies with Keaton, I don't know. I don't like Michael Keaton as Batman. I mean, he was better than Val Kilmer.
Oh yeah, absolutely better than George Clooney as well too. So it's I was really excited when Affleck got announced as Batman because I like him as an actor and I thought he could do a good job. I think he does do a good job. He's just put into maybe crappier movies, but I'd like to see a good Batman Riddler movie. I want to see Riddler a little bit more.
Well, and so have you been watching Gotham?
No, I've seen one episode of it.
I got
the pilot.
I got like halfway through the first season, and from what I hear, like they actually do lean on Riddler pretty heavily. Like they introduce him early on, so I've heard really good things about that one. The only reason I fell off of that is because I'm like Catwoman is what got me into comics, both Catwoman and Bane. Those are what got me into Batman specifically, and they casted her as a child, which makes no sense and completely ruin her story. And I'm just like, all right, I've mentally checked out of this now.
Yeah, I watched the first one in the first episode, and then like I kind of heard what was going on. And I was like, I feel like there's too many like villains coming out at one time, and Bruce Wayne is just a kid.
Yeah.
But the Bane backstory is pretty sweet. Have you ever read Nightfall?
I have. So Nightfall is what got me into comics, with the exception of Catwoman. Nightfall is what got me into reading Batman and the whole Azrael storyline and all of that.
There's so many Batman storylines. It's unreal. I want to read kind of more of the staples too. Like I want to read Death in the Family. I'd like to start like reading the new 52 series that they did because those seem pretty fun. But yeah, when it comes to comics, so I do have a subscription box at the local comic store where I'm at, and every single one is an Image comics, and I don't know what it is.
Image has some good stuff. Like living in Kent, for whatever reason, Kent just doesn't have bookstores. So my pull list was all digital then. So like I went through and read through all the Catwoman, the Nightfall series and all of that. New 52 was okay if you cherry pick it.
Okay.
Like if you like, how DC will make just the anthologies of, Night of the Owls and things like that.
Yeah.
Read it that way.
Okay.
But the one disappointment specifically for me and why I stopped reading is like on my pull list, I had Catwoman for New 52, Justice League Dark, as well as then moving on to Walking Dead as well. And it was just kind of around the time frame that the New 52 stopped and they went on to the I'm completely blanking on what they call it now. Whatever their universe is now. Was about the time I was bored with The Walking Dead, so I just kind of stopped reading comics for the last little while.
Oh, really? I've read every single Walking Dead comic so far that's been released, and I'm a pretty big zombie nerd too. The show The Walking Dead is it's starting to die off, unfortunately, and I think they need to end it on a high note when they can, instead of just beating it like a dead horse. But I like the comics so far. Yeah, the comics I'm reading right now is The Walking Dead. Kick-Ass just got relaunched. It's
which I've heard really good things about too.
Yeah, I've only read the first issue. I got to go pick up the second issue, and the third issue is coming out soon too. But yeah, it's a completely different person. It's actually an African American woman who is like just got done with being deployed and stuff from the army. So it's pretty cool. And then they're also relaunching Hit Girl. So I started reading the Hit Girl series, and then I read the Gravediggers Union, which is pretty cool. And then Robert Kirkman has a new one called Oblivion Song, which the first issue of that was awesome.
So since we've talked about, the scary games and stuff like that, as far as like Japanese horror or manga stuff, have you checked any of that out?
I haven't. I think like the farthest I've ever gotten into that is watching like The Ring.
Okay. Check out, if you can find it, he has a couple collections that you can get like through Comixology and stuff, but there's an author by the name of Junji Ito.
Okay.
That his horror stuff, like, I'm not a huge manga nerd, I'm not a huge anime nerd, but it's just weird, eerie, creepy stuff.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to check that out. That'd be pretty cool.
I think that might be kind of up your alley, especially with the fact that you've been going after a lot of Image comics.
Yeah, Image is doing a cool job, and I hope some of these like shows. I think Amazon was going to do a Kick-Ass series eventually, so I think that'd be pretty sweet. And I would hop on Prime again just to watch that, and they have The Tick, which I hear is really good, so maybe I'll check that out.
I haven't checked it out yet. I was a big fan of the cartoon when I was a kid. So I just hope there's like at one point of the remake live action series that he just screams spoon into battle.
Yeah, that would be pretty good. I've heard nothing but good things about it. So yeah, I think that's something you and I should both probably check out. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and it's something we've talked about for a while, doing something like this, and Sometimes Geek Podcast comes out every week, and then you still doing the Levels Up episode?
Yeah, so aside from the Sometimes Geek Podcast, which is your weekly update every Tuesday afternoon, I also do Sometimes Geek Levels Up. We've been on kind of a hiatus just as I've been trying to get guests for it. But the idea behind it is that it's more of your conversational interview style podcast where I try to dive into the fandom of gaming, whether that's talking to YouTubers, Twitch streamers, cosplayers, developers, things like that, to kind of shine a light on what they're doing and what goes into the things that we're a fan of.
Awesome, man. And you can subscribe to your show on iTunes, Google Play, pretty much everywhere you get the podcast. And then what's your Twitter handle?
Yeah, so to kind of tack on, you can find the Sometimes Geek Podcast at any podcatcher, iTunes, Google, even on Spotify if that's more your route. Nice. I also have my contacts on, I'm completely blanking on this right now, facebook.com/sometimesgeek, where I mainly just post the episode updates, but I welcome comments if you want to, chime in on them. Best place to find me is at Sometimes Geek on Twitter, where I'm a bit more interactive there. And then if you want to go back and listen to the Levels Up series, because I only push out the kind of most recent ones, considering a lot of them are time sensitive. So if you want to dig into older content, links to all the social media, things like that, just check out sometimesgeek.com.
Absolutely, man. And then, of course, at the end of every episode, we bring it back with a little bit of the beer talk. So we were enjoying some Moose Drool. It's a brown ale brought to us by Big Sky Brewing Company, and we say drink it or dump it. In my case, I say we drink it. I really liked it.
You know what? I ended up opening a second one while we were sitting here chatting, so I am going to go drink it.
Absolutely, man. That's awesome. Well, thanks again, man. And we'll still be in touch throughout Twitter and everything, and I will wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, thanks, man. And you as well. Good luck with the show, and thanks for having me on, and we'll do it again soon.
Pew, pew! audio. Goodbye, everyone.